4 Super Bowls in 6 years, 1 quarterback, 1 dynasty. Terry Bradshaw, the face of the 70s NFL, and pick number 1 of the 1970 draft. For once, it seems like the system worked. But our search doesn't stop at the obvious answer. It never does. Because in the 70s, the real gems didn't just hide in later rounds. Some were buried so deep they almost disappeared entirely. Let's go find them. 1970, a new decade, a new NFL. The Pittsburgh Steelers hold the first overall pick. They take a quarterback with a golden arm and the grades to match. Terry Bradshaw, the blonde bomber. 107. For a number 1 pick, that's a massive win. Bradshaw was the cornerstone of a dynasty. But while he was the face of the offense, Pittsburgh found something even more terrifying on defense in the 3rd round. At pick 53, the Steelers draft Mel Blount. He was so dominant that he forced the NFL to change its laws. Before Blount, a defender could harass a receiver the entire length of the field. After him, the league created a rule restricting contact to the first 5 yards. They named it the Mel Blount Rule. 97 versus 107. 2 legends, 1 draft, 1 dynasty. 1970 was a rare win-win for the Scouts, especially for the Steelers Scouts. But as the decade moves forward, the gems get harder to find. 1971. The NFL is searching for its next great leader. New England takes Jim Plunkett at number 1. He'd go on to win 2 Super Bowls, just not there. Our search finds him at 85 AV. A respectable career, but not the best in this class. Right behind him at pick 2, Archie Manning, a New Orleans legend, the patriarch of football's most famous royal family. But even the Manning name couldn't claim the top spot in 1971. This draft ran deep. Pick 20, the Rams found Jack Youngblood, the man who played the Super Bowl on a broken leg. AV 112. Pick 34, the Steelers added another piece to the steel curtain. Jack Ham. AV 113. Both Hall of Famers, both icons. But our search wasn't finished, because at pick 67, the 3rd round, the Cincinnati Bengals found a quarterback the Hall of Fame has seemingly forgotten. Ken Anderson, 120, higher than Ham, higher than Youngblood, higher than everyone in this class. The most valuable player of the 1971 draft found at the bottom of the round 3. No gold jacket, just numbers that don't lie. 1972. Buffalo holds the first overall pick. They take Walt Patulski, a defensive end out of Notre Dame. He was supposed to anchor their defense for a decade. Instead, he vanished. 20. For a number 1 pick, that's one of the biggest failures in draft history. 5 years, gone. But while Buffalo was chasing a ghost, Pittsburgh was about to find their heartbeat. 12 players were called before the Steelers stepped to the podium. They selected Franco Harris. He wasn't just a fullback. He was the spark that ignited the Steel Curtain era. 20 versus 103. Franco Harris delivered 5 times the value of the first overall pick. winning 4 rings and immortalizing himself with the Immaculate Reception. In 1972, the real gem wasn't at the top. He was waiting at unlucky 13. 1973, Houston chose a giant at number 1, John Matuszak, a physical specimen. Our search gives him a AV of 45. Impressive on paper, modest in impact. But while Houston celebrated their mountain, 2 other teams were making history quietly. At pick 4, New England didn't just find a guard. They found arguably the greatest to ever play the position, John Hannah, an immovable force for 13 seasons. 112 points of pure dominance. In most years, Hannah walks away as the undisputed gem of the class. Not in 1973. Deep in round 3, pick 64, San Diego selected a quarterback from Oregon named Dan Fouts. Not the biggest, not the fastest, but the pilot of the most explosive passing attack the league had ever seen. 45 versus 123. The math is brutal. Nearly triple the value of the number 1 pick, found in the 3rd round. The real gem of 1973 aired it out until he reached the Hall of Fame. 1974. Dallas takes the first overall pick. Ed Jones, 94. A solid player, a fine choice. But while Dallas was building their tower, Pittsburgh was putting on a masterclass. In a single draft, the Steelers selected 4 future Hall of Famers: Lynn Swann, John Stallworth, Jack Lambert, and Mike Webster. But even among legends, 2 names rose to the top of our search. Round 2, pick 46, the snarling soul of the Steel Curtain defense. Jack Lambert, fast, mean, mathematically elite, 111, already ahead of the number 1 pick. But the real gem of 1974 was still deeper in the shadows. Round 5, pick 125. Pittsburgh selected a center from Wisconsin. They called him Iron Mike, 114, the highest number in the entire 1974 class. The most valuable player in the draft, found in the 5th round, the engine of a dynasty, at pick 125. 1975. Atlanta is desperate for a franchise face. They hold the first overall pick and take Steve Bartkowski, the golden boy from Cal. The arm, the look, the pedigree of a number 1. 69. Bartkowski was good, a franchise leader for a decade. But in this search, good is the enemy of great. And just 3 picks later, the Chicago Bears were about to find something 69 points of value couldn't never touch. Pick 4, Chicago, Walter Payton. They called him Sweetness, but on the field, he was a force of pure, unadulterated will. He didn't just run. He punished defenders for trying to tackle him. 69 versus 127. Nearly double. Atlanta got a savior for their Sunday afternoons. Chicago found the soul of the NFL. The chosen one wasn't the first name called. He was waiting just a few heartbeats away at pick 4. 1976. 2 expansion teams entered the league. With the very first pick in their history, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selected Lee Roy Selmon. Not just a player, the foundation of a franchise. A Hall of Famer who brought dignity to a struggling team. 78, a score that validates his gold jacket. But while Tampa found their cornerstone, New England found something else entirely just 4 picks later. Pick 5. The Patriots take Mike Haynes. He didn't just play cornerback. He erased half the field. 1977. Tampa Bay is coming off of winless inaugural season. Coach John McKay decided to go with what he knows. His former college star from USC, Rick Bell. Pick number 1. Bell's story is one of the most emotional in the sport. Injuries. A rare disease that took his life at just 29 years old. A AV of 24. Not for lack of talent, but for lack of time. And Tampa missed a legend by a single pick. 1 spot later, Dallas, the Heisman winner from Pitt. Tony Dorsett, electric from day one, offensive rookie of the year and a Super Bowl ring in his very first season. 24 versus 107. In 1977, the gem wasn't hidden deep in the shadows. It was right there at Ep.2, waiting for a dynasty to claim it. And he still holds the record for the longest play possible in the NFL history. A 99-yard touchdown run with only 10 men on the field. 1978. The NFL reaches a crossroads. To save the game from becoming too defensive, the league implements its most drastic rule changes in history. Restricting contact, protecting the pass, opening up the field. But not every team was ready to embrace the future. Houston takes Earl Campbell with the first overall pick. The Tyler Rose, the ultimate throwback, a human wrecking ball who led the league in rushing in each of his first 3 seasons. Campbell was a force of nature, but the same collisions that made him a legend shortened his window of dominance. To find a player who truly weaponized the NFL's new rules, you had to wait until pick 6. Green Bay, James Lofton, an Olympic-level athlete, an evolution in motion. In an era where the rules finally protected the pass, Lofton was built for the new world, maintaining elite production for 16 seasons. 67 versus 102. Houston chose the Hammer. Green Bay found the player built for the next 20 years. As the rules changed, so did the definition of the one. 1979. The decade of the steel curtain is closing. Buffalo holds the first overall pick. They select linebacker Tom Cousineau, and then he never puts a Bills jersey. He chose the Canadian Football League for more money, leaving Buffalo with nothing but a wasted pick. 38. A monumental failure of a number 1 pick. He eventually returned to the NFL with Cleveland, but his impact was modest. And while the league was distracted by the drama in Buffalo, Bill Walsh and San Francisco were about to execute the heist of the century. 81 players were called. Every team in the league passed on him, some twice. At pick 82, round 3, San Francisco selected Joe Montana. Not the strongest, not the fastest, just ice in his veins and perfection in his arm. 38 versus 125. Nearly 4 times the value of the first overall pick. Joe Montana didn't just play the game, he solved it. The ultimate chosen one of 1979 was a third-round pick that 81 teams let walk by. 10 drafts, 10 searches, and the pattern is clear. Sometimes the gem is one pick away, like Dorsett at 2. Sometimes it's buried in round 3, like Montana, like Fouts. Sometimes it's in round 5 at pick 125, like Iron Mike Webster. And sometimes the number 1 pick doesn't even show up. The 70s built dynasties, but the dynasties were built by players nobody expected. The 80s are where quarterbacks become gods, and the search gets even more ruthless. I'm Victor Francisco for the Global Sideline. The search continues on the next video.